All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening to all. I thank everyone for joining on this discussion today. Let's get started. Some standard instructions before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and I would really appreciate if all the attendees could please be on mute during the discussion. And in case you have any questions or queries, you're most welcome to use the chat box. So let's begin with our discussion today. Why basis security? Why now? We have our elite panel of experts, distinguished guests who will share valuable insights on this topic. First, we have with us Mr. Thomas. He is the Chief Operating Officer at Real Time North America. Thomas is a pioneering figure in SAP security and biometric technology. He has more than 2 decades of experience, and he's shaping and promoting cutting-edge solutions like BioLock, which he integrated with Fujitsu's Palm Veintech and the NYMI band for SAP digital signatures. He's leading the way in achieving zero trust security for SAP systems worldwide. He's also done some excellent work with NASA, Brevard County, Central Bank in the UK. So welcome, Thomas. Uh, Next, we have with us Mr. Pratap Gulabrao. He's the Senior Director Cloud Innovation at Sellable Technologies. Pratap is a seasoned professional with more than 25 years of experience in ERP, analytics, change management, and specializing in manufacturing, supply chain, and engineering. As a former CIO, Pratap has collaborated with stakeholders at all levels, delivering outstanding outcomes. And he has expertise in business and digital transformation, optimizing technology investments, and achieving the highest levels of ROI. Welcome, Pratap.
Thank you.
And,
Happy
yeah.
to be here.
Next, we have with us Mr. Deepak Padgaonkar. He's the EVP Technology at V3iT Consulting. Deepak is a Forbes Technology Council member, and he has more than 30 years of experience in ERP, software management, supply chain, business intelligence, CRM, and other application design and development. He's done more than 100 SAP implementations worldwide, and he's currently leading groundbreaking initiatives in AIML deployments for organizations. He's done multiple platform migration and cloud migrations as well. So welcome aboard, gentlemen. Really honored to have all of you here. Without further ado, let's get started with the good part. Over to you, Deepak.
Thank you, Prachi. I think with the distinguished audience here, would like to start. Hey, why is it so pertinent in this day and age? And with all the wars going on, I think we know the answer at a very bird's eye view level. But hey, why now?
I think, Deepak, you kind of asked a very, very good question. And security is definitely a serious topic, I'll say. And based on my experience, and of course, Thomas can add to this as well, is that, one of the main thing where the CIO does not sleep at night is security, right? And security comes from various areas, right? When you start talking about security, start talking about protection of your PII data, your physical security, your network security, your parameter security, and most important, your SAP ERP security, which is kind of the gold mine of your business data or your hub, where it all begins for the business, right? So I think talking about security is extremely important. The reason it is important is because um, in last 5 years, technology has changed so much and taken into a new level where every company has a very complex stack. It has got a cloud stack, it has got an IoT stack, it has got an IT stack which has ERP and stuff. And also, there are a lot of new components that are connecting into the network for the innovation and digital formation. And I think that's the main thing where I think it's more important now to kind of talk about that, how we kind of work through this to really have our environment and network secured. So, Thomas, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, Pratap, you're jumping right into the technology and taking a deep dive. I always, when we talk to people specifically here in North America, we always tend to warm them up a little bit because some of them don't really accept that there is fraud and it hasn't been around very long and nobody would ever do anything to us, right? And I'd like to share that really that the oldest known fraud case was actually 300 BC, when two merchants insured a ship with the intent to sink it to collect the insurance money. And they were caught sinking their own ship and they were arrested and one of them died. But fraud has been around for 20 centuries. And the first known financial fraud, which I find, because we deal a lot in financial fraud, people say, yeah, that's brand new. I said, no. Just 500 years later, about 200 AD, some Romans decided to kill the emperor and sell the Roman Empire to the highest bidder. And they actually made a lot of money and created a civil war. This is known as the first financial fraud in history. Well, now fast forward, we all have heard of Ponzi, we have heard of Murdoch and all these guys, and now people finally see it a little bit more in the news, but there still seems to be this overall perception, and I'm being the devil's advocate here, that companies think, well, yeah, it happens to others, but this will never happen to us.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
that's what I wanted to throw this in. The first thing that we need to understand is there is fraud. There has been fraud for 2,000 years. There will be fraud the next 2,000 years. And if you think you won't be affected by this fraud, well, stop dreaming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Certainly.
And yeah, go ahead, Gopal, go ahead.
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, the way frauds are happening, the way people are making money keeps getting complex. And I think, fraudsters have more options to fraud now than it used to be before. Like ransomware, for example, or, like we are referring to, cybersecurity frauds or like financial frauds. There are so many ways. Previously, you can just go to someone home and take money out, but now you don't even have to go out, go to their home to take money out of their account, right? So that makes it all the more important to have it right now itself. Yeah.
And this is exactly the misconception that people's mind chain can't follow, is that when the password was invented in 1963, right, the first computer was protected by a password algorithm. And the inventor back then said, this is cumbersome, people don't like it, and it can be circumvented. Well, we're still using it today, but until 10, 15 years ago, people had their SAP server sitting in their basement, and there was physical security, and you had to breach the perimeter of the Siemens factory first and crawl into the burst basement before you could access the SAP system. Now that SAP system is in the cloud, everybody has access to the cloud, including all the bad guys that we don't want to have access to the cloud. So we're sitting in a complete different scenario, and people need to change their mind that the old protection levels that worked 10, 15, 20 years ago are not sufficient anymore.
Absolutely, could not agree more. And the whole thing is you have all these crypto aspects that have emerged out, and then it can be broken by use of quantum technology, and you get on the cloud quantum technology computers for cheap. And that's the scary part of even having encrypted technologies being broken, right? So where there's a lock, there is a key, as they say, and that's so true of these days and easily accessible. I mean, we actually buy devices to spy on us now. They are called phones. And then we go on social media and actually expose ourselves. And now with the enterprise going on the cloud, hey, your data is on the cloud, exposed to the companies that you don't want them exposed to. And there's so many tentacles that are getting thrown out. I mean, there's whispering that goes on. There's so many other things that go on that really add on to being insecure. I mean, it's not mature yet as a technology to get in there. So the idea is basically you need those secure professionals to make sure that your landscapes are staying healthy, they're secure, your data is secure, and you want to make sure that everything is as proficiently protected as can be. So what do you think are the technologies out there, and how do you think people are proceeding with data protection, or what security measures do you see they are taking today?
Thomas, you want to go?
Well, I mean, maybe if you don't mind, let me show my two little toys here to start with the story, and then we can jump into the details. So really the way that we got started almost 20 years ago with our BioLock technology was because a customer came to us with the good old sticky note and said, everybody is sharing passwords, logging on at other users, and you have any idea how we can change that, right? And we took a Siemens ID mouse. This thing is almost 25 years old, first fingerprint sensor USB device, and we built a custom application inside SAP for true two-factor authentication, long before two-factor authentication even became a word. So very simple. Type in your password, put your finger in the sensor, you log in. Now, of course, the mouses look a little bit more modern now, but it's the same thing, right? You can use other biometric devices from any fingerprint, but more exciting, you can use palm vein. This is really good. Just hold your hand over the scanner, especially we use it in kiosks for plant maintenance and stuff. People just walk up to a shared computer, hold their hand over the scanner, get identified, and if you're not identified, well, you can't do anything, even on an unlocked PC, which is great. But the point is, the good old password or even single sign-on that logs you into an account and then you walk away and now everybody has access to the permissions that you were supposed to get. It's just not working anymore. You need to go down to the data level. And this is what we have done with our BioLock technology. And I explained it yesterday, where you can simply, like in a hotel, right? You have your key card and you get in your room, and you know everybody in that hotel has a key card, from the front desk to the security guy. Every cleaning lady can open your hotel room. Just like in SAP, everybody is totally over permitted. So what do you do at night? You close that swinging doorbell. You overwrite their security. You lock it down, and now you decide who do you let in and how is that person let in? What modality are you taking? So enforcing the least privileged access, establishing the real identity of the person, and then logging the identity for true compliance, that is something that I think everybody needs to be focusing on these days.
Yeah, so you brought up a good point, is that and I like the way you demonstrated it. It's basically that not only you need a physical perimeter security, but you also need a soft electronic security, kind of making sure that the right person is getting the right access, and just about the right level of access as well, right? So that basically brings me, because I remember when I was in Saffron, and I got a kind of a notice saying, hey, I have 800 servers that needs to be patched, right? And this is where the whole now the marathon begins. That while we are doing all of these things, nobody has ever thought that we had 800 servers that were left to patch, and this is where I was talking to my security officer and the discussion. So Pratap, usually I would say only one thing: there are companies who know they have been hacked, and the companies that they don't know that has been hacked, right? So that we probably don't know if we are hacked or not, but we don't want to go into the other side where we know we are going to be hacked. So we really need to act on this fast, and you really need to get this external agency to help us real quickly. So I need this money real quick and now, right? But again, I'll tell you, till past COVID, I think till our exposure was, I'll say in many companies it was limited. COVID really accelerated our cloud and external exposure. We were still inside in a lot of things. Because I come from an aerospace and defense company where we are extremely sensitive of putting anything on cloud, right? And that's where I think when the journey begins into the cloud and we start talking, um, it's very important that our SAP, especially when we talk about SAP, and because today the discussion is around SAP, I want to focus more on SAP. It's very important that at least our core business is hacked, because till some time back, when you would say used to get hacked, they used to kind of have a little bit here and there, stuff like that. But now, I'll tell you, and I've gone through a live example of a ransomware where my production environment was completely locked and it shut down the company for 21 days. My backup didn't work. I had to rebuild my SAP servers back again with an old backup, loss of data. So going through that experience, and I'm looking back, it is extremely important that we have companies like Symantec or CrowdStrike who are not only monitoring your assets, digital assets, um, for physical as well as external. Means physical they can't do, but physical you need to make sure that you have a good surrounding. Even if you have a offshore data center, or if you have a data center, you are a hybrid environment, we are still carrying some data on your premises or your partner's data center. You need to make sure that they are physically secure. And then second is that they have a digital authentication or multi-factor authentication. So Thomas really put it really very well with this. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? But I'm totally on board with you, Thomas, that this is really getting very important, and physical and digital security are the key to help us going forward.
And let's talk a little bit about the cyber criminals, right? The news always throws them in one pot. And they go like, yeah, they're the bad guys. But in the security world, we really differentiate, and there are multiple groups of the people who attack us. And the cyber criminals are the best publicized ones because they want to come in and they want to access data and they want to sell it for money or cause damages. But we have other types of groups that we should not ignore. And for example, the hacktivists that have no interest in financial gain, they just want justice or they want political disruption, which brings us to another form of attackers, which are the nation state hackers that are actually sponsored by Russia or North Korea or something, and they want to disrupt a government, an election, something that's going on. But one really important group that people completely ignore and that we have seen some pretty bad damages from in recent years are what they call the script kiddies, the kids that sit at home, that have all these knowledge, all these computer power. They're bored to their mind, and for them it becomes a thrill to hack an SAP system, just like riding a mountain bike down a mountain, except it's on the computer. And these kids have a tremendous amount of knowledge, a tremendous amount of time on their hands, and they cause a lot of damages. And the beautiful part is that everything in SAP in 20 years ago how would a kid know how to create a purchase order and then approve it and send money to the Grand Cayman Islands? Well, right now that's a simple Google search or YouTube search, and there's a nice video how to do this. So once they're in, they know exactly what to do. But the number one thing that people still don't look at are the insider attacks. They cause the most damages. And the reason they cause the most damages is because they don't even need to go on YouTube. They are working for the organization. They understand the finance system. They understand how to send money to the Grand Cayman Islands. And most importantly, they understand how to cover it up. So it's never going to be detected. And that's where the most damages come in. And I think it's very important for our audience and everybody in the SAP world to understand that there are multiple attack levels, there are multiple groups, they have multiple motivations, and they need to consider all of this when protecting the SAP system against those threats.
So true, so true. I mean, great discussion, Pratap and Thomas. One thing with the advent of cloud and with the price for SAP and all these newer generation cloud products that are emerging, how do you see the system ambience getting kind of into the molds of security issues, and what do you see people doing around?
Well, the biggest problem we have is, well, I mean, we're talking about the cloud, right? We've had SAP in hosting centers for many, many years. Now we call it the cloud. Even I see more and more hosting centers are actually being moved in underwater facilities for natural cooling. So I don't know how the cloud applies to that. I would call it a moved in the water bubble, but that's a different story. But the point is that once the computer is somewhere else, the people that are supposed to access it have the same ways that the people that are not supposed to access it. And especially with the trend of people working from home, using their own devices, not having corporate security on their devices, accessing those servers, SAP servers in the cloud or in the water with a simple VPN and a logon and a password that is very easy to hack and obtain. That is a very scary thought.
Yeah, that's very true, Thomas. Actually, when I've been working with so many organizations, and last 1 year especially, I have seen that these ransomware attacks keep on increasing. Almost every 2 weeks or at the most 3 weeks, I get to know this organization was attacked. There is a stats where it says that at every 8 minutes, a major enterprise is somebody tries to hack it, somebody tries to take over the systems. Not every time people succeed, but then again, yeah, people are continuously trying to do that. And some of the friends in the ecosystem I know of, they had very bad experiences. Like they lost their systems, like Pratap also mentioned recently, and the organization was at standstill for that period. So it's huge loss. And then again, in the world where we are looking for solutions to supply chain, where it is changing every week, every day. You know, if the organization gets stuck for so many days, then it is a huge problem. And like looking at the levels of security, you rightly mentioned, like, you know, when people are working from home, it is a major challenge. But every device comes with its own tentacles. But like there are organizations that I speak to, they don't want to take the liability of distributing the hardware. There are thousands of employees working, right? So yeah, I'm wondering, like, you know, if you had any experience, how do we address those solutions where it comes to huge organization like Boeing, for example, 50,000 people, you know, working on those. How do we address any specific solutions you've come across meanwhile?
Well, I have actually done this for 20 years now, and the simple solution that we have proposed, that we have installed in 5 continents, is very simple. Establish a security checkpoint on the data level. You know, this is what we have done for 20 years. And as the lady who introduced me very nice talked about NASA, let me talk about this. This was Brevard County, NASA, back when just after I founded the company in Florida in October 2002. And I presented to around the conferences in Florida, and NASA came to me, and they still have they just had a breach in HR, specifically info type 167, where a user that had not HR access had a friend or a guy that he didn't like, and he jumped on the computer to find out what kind of embarrassing operation he had, and found it in the info type in the health plans, and then spread it around the company. They got a big lawsuit and some really bad press. And then they heard about BioLock, like, hey, this is cool. Are you telling me you can put a security checkpoint just on that info type 167? And we said, yeah. The allow list to access the info type. And now they need to put the finger on the sensor. And unless they put the finger on the sensor and they are specifically on the allow list in BioLock, they will not get access. And by doing this, they would cut out every person that would take over, we call it an ATO, an account takeover, either physically by me going to get my next coffee and you jumping on my unlocked PC, or a hacker taking over an account. But that also prevents all the secretaries that have access to all their executives or the people that share the passwords because they go on vacation and tell their coworkers, hey, take care of my inbox while I'm gone because I don't want to come back to all this work, right? But it also keeps out the hackers and, very important, the administrators, because an administrator does not need access to info type 167, or they don't need to make $1 million wire transfer to the Grand Cayman Islands. So our solution, and again, this was 20 years ago, and we actually won the InfoWorld 100 award after we issued a press release. And then in 2005, SAP came to NASA and they made a movie about that installation for their SAP TV. And I'm in that movie with a similar shirt, except red, and I looked a couple of years younger. But funny enough, over the years, the movie, of course, disappeared because everything changed. But just during COVID, SAP TV put that movie back on their YouTube channel because they found that it was more relevant now than it was 20 years ago, because they finally now understand it. But long story short, lock it down on the function level, put that little swinging door bar on the SE16 or ME54 or something like that, or PA20, and now you can guarantee the CEO that the people that are on the invitation list with the BioLock are the only people who get in. No more hacker, nobody else. And that's very important, I think, for the cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. And Thomas, one of the things that I think means, thank you for sharing that example. But one of the challenges that I had, and I still do have many a times, is this explosion of the SaaS softwares across, right? So I have an organization where now people just feel, hey, you know what, Monday.com is a good project management tool, and I suddenly see the whole engineering team is enrolled, and I get to know after 4 months, oh, you know what, they're using Monday.com, and on one hand side, they're using their SAP screen and for entering materials. On other side, Monday.com is going on, and many such similar tools are going on. And how do you actually have this control? I know there are now authentication tools like Okta is a big one, but how is there a way where organizations are managing this whole SaaS? Because my major challenge was I wanted to scan across my 12,000 employees and find out what are all the list of SaaS softwares that have been used that have not been tracked or not in my central database, where I can start saying, okay, now we need to having Okta implementations or IAM, other IAM tools to get that authentication going on this tool. Have you come across some similar challenges, and can you kind of throw light on that, you or Deepak? Because this has always have been a challenge for me to manage the SaaS footprint across.
No, I think I'm in the same boat. In fact, I just came back, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the ID Week in Washington, the world's largest identity show, and there were a couple hundred vendors, pretty much everybody promising the same thing. So I have been at a lot of identity shows, SAP shows, identity shows, biometric shows over the past 20 years. I've seen a lot of vendors come, a lot of vendors go. They have an idea, they get investment, they go to a couple trade shows for 3 years, and then they disappear again. So that's a very challenging market to navigate. It's very hard to see what to believe. The best thing you really can do is try to listen to a few of them and then do a pilot installation. Try it out. This is what we do with every customer. Is say, look, I know you don't believe in magical flying cars, but you need to wake up and understand that that's a real thing. You know, we have them. They're coming. It's just the FAA holding us up. So please try our flying car, fly around for 30 days, see how well it works, how well it interacts with your employees, and how much value it adds, and then move on from there. And I think that applies to any of these technologies. Listen to the vendors, evaluate them, but then test it to make sure it really does what they promise you it will do.
No, absolutely, and I think you bring a great point, but I still wanted to kind of poke a little bit of these things that I'm sure that there are certain aspects. One aspect is basically managing the footprint of the cloud and the access across, and the other footprint is change management. Because the one thing I've seen as a personal challenge, no matter how good the tool is, how do I bring it in? How do I sell it, and how do you really establish that value that is not a hurdle to the work, right? Because um, when you go on manufacturing floor, they want to have a product out. Their goal is product out, and anything that comes in a middle as an additional step or otherwise is seen as, hey, you know what, unnecessary or non-value added, right? And it is changing. I'm not saying it's changing, but still, I do get this challenge, especially from the shop floor, where you have a lot of exposure of OT, IT, non systems that basically can um, can hit us, and I think we have tried to control it. We used to use monitoring services, and that monitoring services really helped. End-to-end encryption and other stuff also helped, but I still think that we are not there where people don't think security is everybody's responsibility. So I just wanted to ask that, to change this thought process or approach, is there any experience behind that you guys have done with organizations to change that mindset?
Okay, so you're bringing up a good point. It's not all about technology, right? I love about talking about technology. I think technology is cool. Always thought that since I was a kid. But it's also about processes. And more important, it is about people. And the people are always the weakest link. So when you're talking about changing a mindset, first of all, you need to establish a security mindset with the people. And I have a funny story from a friend of mine who owned a little car shop. And he had the challenge that in the evenings, after they closed, the employees would always take basically all his equipment and his oil, and they would do oil changes for all their families and friends' cars and use the tools and use his oil. And they saw it was totally normal because we work here, why not, right? It's our tools, it's our oil. And so he saw, what can he do about it? So he basically built a metal shed at the end of the store. And before they closed down, he made everybody bring the tools and the oil into that shed and made them lock it up and give him the key to establish the process that it was not acceptable to take his tools and his oil and his store and his electric, which was basically employee fraud. So they didn't even know they were doing anything wrong. But according to the ACFE, companies lose about 5% of their revenue to fraud, right? And it starts with the employee saying, okay, let me make 20 copies on the copy machine for my kid's birthday party. And then it continues from there. People take home coffee, you name it, they got it. They abuse the corporate company car. And then it goes all the way to the like, hey, yeah, the company doesn't need all that money. Let me send $100 million to my own bank account. Or maybe not 100 million, but well, I mean, you're laughing. I don't know. Everybody that's on this call, if you have Netflix, you need to watch a show called The Queen of All Horses. Have you seen that?
Okay.
Rita Crondwell. From Dixon, Illinois, is a small municipality outside Chicago, not far from you guys. And over many years, she stole $53.7 million from the little municipality. No road was ever fixed. Every money went in her pocket. She's driving around a $2 million RV. At some point, she had a horse farm with over 100 horses. Hence the movie, The Queen of All Horses. And she would explain to the people that her family was very wealthy, invested in the stock market, and she just wanted to give back to the community, which is why she worked as a treasury at the city. So this just gives you a great example how far things can go, and also brings you to the point, just because you're going bowling with the people, you don't need to trust them. Trust, but verify.
That's very true, actually. When I work with various C-level people, where talking about the security policies they have in place, either it is like they have very a general kind of policy in place, which is not updated on a regular basis, because things change every 2-3 months. It has to be updated. And there are organizations which update it, but employees are not trained onto that. That is the second stage. And also, more commonly, I find is especially in the now people keep moving from one company to another company. How do you ensure that data is not leaked? Data is not breached? You're completely right. Most of the things start in-house. It starts within the company, and keeping a check mechanism, a trust and verify mechanism in place is a huge challenge. I see, like, for example, onboarding of new employees, onboarding of contractors. There are very few organizations who have a mandate that you cannot log in the system unless you complete these trainings. Most of the times people start working and then they think, oh, yeah, I need to take this training, and they may or may not. So establishing the policies, updating the policies, making sure everybody is engaged into it, be a part of the policy making and using those is very important. So yeah, like it is a lot of times it is within the company itself. Somebody is stealing the money and we don't know about it. Yeah. So Deepak, how is your experience? I know you are like part of Forbes Council, and these things must be coming up on regular basis. Any insights on that?
Well, you're talking about establishing the policies, enforcing the policies, I think is the largest part, right? And I always laugh about it, because what do I do if I open my phone? I put my finger on the sensor, right? And it opens up my phone. And then I go to Starbucks and I pay my $5 Starbucks by putting my finger on my sensor. But then I go in the SAP system and do $1 million wire transfer and simply type in my password. So there is still this really big disconnect from the people to understand what security measures should they deploy in which area. And I'm very happy actually seeing that very recently in Google, We all log on via Windows Hello, and we have fingerprint sensors in our laptops and things like that. And now they're started to be natively integrated with things like LinkedIn. So once you log on to your LinkedIn account or a corporate database, you can actually just put your finger on the sensor. Deepak, I've noticed in the chat, which I can't see really, there are a lot of questions in there. Should you or us address those questions that are coming in? Can you see them?
Yeah, we can see them. And maybe, Thomas, if you think like you should answer some question, anybody who feels like we should answer those questions, please pick it up and go ahead.
Yeah,
I think I'll definitely be interested, Deepak or Thomas, if you can share the question that is, this is a question for me also, that with S4 licenses for on-prem hardware does not want to move to RISE, right? And the second was organizing balance their robust security system while maintaining the operational. So if there is any user stories or example, I think definitely we'll all like to hear from the experts here.
Yeah, I think what we have seen is both, right? We have seen a mixture of on-premise as well as RISE. I think RISE is a good offering. Have not seen too many implementations pick up as much as SAP would like. It's a great concept, but haven't seen too many customers pick up on that. I think it's when I talk to customers, most of the customers that we have are playing the wait and watch game. That's what we are seeing in the ambience. But there have been success stories also that we can talk to that have those implementations going on, and I believe it's a negotiation thing. It's like there are both things happening as we see right now. I don't know what you guys see at this point.
I've seen some people going on RISE, but I think more. I think if you have the FedRAMP angle, then it's a little bit of a different story versus if you're just a regular commercial company, right? So your industry does play in, but I've seen a few companies, especially not the big ones, but the mid cap or the small companies up to $200-300 million revenue, they are opting for the RISE platform. But I think there are a lot of changes that is happening in RISE as well, right? Because now SAP is mandating that they use the SAP cloud rather than a platform of choice, right? Because I'll tell you, my apprehension is that we do not want to put all the eggs in one basket, right? So there has to be a uniformity across, and it's a time of a hybrid environment because each of these cloud providers have a distinct advantage, right? And I don't want to kind of say, hey, I'm locked with your product, but I also want to make sure that I can leverage power of AWS and I can leverage the power of Azure when it comes to collaboration and teams, right? Because I'll tell you, my organization, the biggest savior during COVID was Teams, right? So again, looking at across all of this, it is a tough job, I'll tell you, because the landscape is so much changing, and now IoT coming into picture big time, factory data coming into picture big time, and you just have unlimited scope of security and very limited scope of how you can manage, because we still have these people in the middle. You don't have an AI ML solution that is kind of be so intelligent that I deploy it and it looks at the endpoint security, it looks at my SAP security, it's looking at who is using what SaaS tool and how many screens and web logins he's doing, or is his cache cleared out? Is he storing passwords? So there are so many aspects to users and technology that I think you can do only so much, right? So it is kind of a journey, I would say. you are learning. But at the same time, I think there are tools like we are using Sophos right now, right? Just testing it out. But there are a lot of tools that can kind of protect your assets, right? Avoid the DLP side. I mean, Symantec, I've used it because data loss is also a big thing. Means and it is kind of carved out into a separate thing, the compliance GDPR. It comes under security, but it is still more data centric, right? So it's called data security and protection, right? And rather than the network or endpoint security. But times are definitely where you have to use security monitoring. You need to have a desktop endpoint software deployed, which kind of manages your data because of the remote working stuff. And you also need to have training, right? Training is the most part, and making people aware that, hey, security is everybody's responsibility and not something someone who is in IT department putting the policies of the group securities across, right? So anyone want to add anything to it? But it's definitely a time where change is the reality, and keeping up with the change is not easy. I'll tell you that.
Well, like we established earlier, right? Fraud has been going on for quite some time, and being here in Oak Ridge is, which was seriously the secret city until 20 years ago. Nobody knew it existed, and when it was built, right at the start of the Second World War, people were not even allowed to know what they're working on. They didn't realize they're working on a nuclear bomb until the day it was dropped in Japan.
Mhm.
So everything was very secret. But the interesting part is there were actually billboards on the major roads, big house-sized billboards, telling them to keep quiet what they were talking about. One billboard I remember, I actually saw it in the museum, was a person on the phone line and say, do not speak about what you're doing at work because it's a serious security breach. So this has been going on long before computers, and it feeds right into what Pratap said, that the acceptance of the user, the understanding that there is a security risk, that they are part of the, not only of the problem, but also of the solution, needs to become a general mindset to positively attack the security.
I just want to do a quick time check as well. Ms. Deepak, do you want to cover anything specific, or want to answer any questions across? Because we have about 8 minutes left.
No, I think those are great discussions. For the interest of the crowd, I think what we'll do is probably have some of those questions answered. Prachi, do you want to go one by one and just kind of have them answer that?
Yes, Deepak. We have one question. How can organizations balance ensuring robust security for SAP systems while maintaining operational efficiency and user experience? Any inputs?
So I would say start with training, right? Start with training, have an endpoint security deployed, and have a monitoring services. So don't start with locking down. Start small, gather evidence. Once you have evidence, then you have more and more use cases or business reasons to kind of slowly fine tune it right down. So when we started initially, our restriction on the PII data and scanning, right? We used to have a sniffer on the machine, every machine, to make sure that every 7 days it kind of scans and looks for any PII data. And if there is a PII data, it kind of gives a warning saying, delete the PII data or we will log the machine, right? So that's basically something that is very useful. The second point useful is to kind of restricting the upload and download of data. If you're not within using the company's device, or even if you're using the company's device, there has to be a warning saying that, hey, you're going to Gmail, you're going to external SaaS applications. Please ensure that you do not have any corporate applications on. You're not switching between back and them, because there is a possibility of people hacking or getting data or being able to do that, right? And the third thing is, like I said, hire a monitoring service for your DDoS attacks, and to kind of understand what is happening across the network, to kind of give you a good overview, because unless you don't show that data, how many pings you're getting for hacking, uh, the executives will not fund or be with you on the security journey, because convincing them, helping them with real data is very helpful. So training, having some good software, and there are good softwares in the market, and kind of managing, growing slowly and fine tuning the whole. And for security, for SAP, do use the SOX compliance tool to kind of review the authorization, because I still see a lot of people have a lot of authorizations, and I think it's important when you do system copies, especially for HR data, use the scramblers where possible, right? Use the scramblers to kind of make sure the PI data is not exposed to a lot of people. Sorry, I might have taken a little bit longer, but that's
That was very helpful, actually.
That's very helpful. That's great insight. So thank you. Thomas, do you have any?
Yeah, Pratap, if I can just add to this, SAP GRC is obviously a big deal, and I've known Jasvir Gill since GRC was Versa. We were hanging out at ASAX and Sapphire long before he sold it and made quite a lot of money on it. But very recently this year, SAP actually published a great article about a global oil company, Sasol Oil in South Africa, who implemented our Biolog technology specifically to reinforce their SAP GRC installation. And they were using GRC to do the typical segregation of duties, but then they noticed that they specifically, people that were not supposed to be, still had access to like transactions like a bank underscore app or the OOCU underscore RESP to define responsibilities in SAP. And so they decided to put the Biolog in place to truly check ID, to know the person, but then also combine it with a dual confirmation group. So it actually takes two people next to each other, putting a finger on a sensor before they can access the responsibility transaction to truly prevent any kind of capability of fraud in the system.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I saw another question here. How does an organization know if they have been breached, and how do we detect a breach? Well, they don't know. That's the funny story. Fraud sometimes takes years to detect, and my really favorite fraud is right there from LA, where our friend is from, where a nun, Mary Kreuper, embezzled almost $1 million from a for the school. She covered it up. Nobody ever detected it. And it took until she actually had to be forced into retirement until people found out that there was something fishy going on. And then they found out that she had been stealing for years. And they eventually, I think she was 79 years old when she was indicted. So the message is very clear. Generally, you will find out, but it's either an internal tip or it's an intern opening her mouth too far, or it is a tool that might detect something or even prevent something. But generally, that is a very long game. So you need to be very careful. You need to look for people that never go on vacation, because if they go on vacation, then they can't cover up their fraud. So that should be a big red flag. And there are certain other tools to find out what's really going on.
True, very true. Yeah.
I know we have a lot of questions and really great discussion, but time is running short and we have to get back to other things, all of us. So it was really an honor to host all of you today. I really appreciate all the time and effort everybody has put in, especially our distinguished panel members, and not to forget our lovely audiences, some of whom stuck around till the very end. So have a great morning, great evening, everyone. It was lovely meeting all of you. Thank you so much. Bye.